Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Contributor Growth Working Group meeting of the 25th of April. This is a CNCF public recorded meeting, and it will be uploaded to YouTube later. Please abide to the CNCF Code of Conduct, and over to our agenda. Everybody that's here is known to me, so I don't think we have to do introductions. There's only one agenda item for the meeting for today, which I've put in there. So, as many of you might know, we have a visitor.
Howdy.
We just kicked off the meeting. Welcome, Herbert Smith. You're welcome to come off mute.
Yep, and if you apparently somebody joined by mistake. Or they joined and had no camera and microphone, and they're now rejoining. We'll see.
See how it rolls. All right.
Yep.
So from the TOC side, they're busy asking tags to revisit their charters and their README, and there's a template. Part of the reason is there's a lot of the charters that are years old that never been touched again, and then there is many tags that have charters specifically for the tag, not the working groups, in several places. One in their own repo, one in the TOC repo, and they're out of sync, and they contain leadership in 3-4 different places, and that's out of sync. So in trying to simplify, get things in less places and more hyperlinked, remove people from the charter, and while we're at it, just review, is the charter still what we have in mind? A good point made by Emily is charters should not be reviewed and slimmed down according to people and skills available, but it should still, you should still have the dream of what the original purpose was. So don't trim it down to reality, just keep going, but do check if it's still in line with what the tag's supposed to mean.
Okay, so remind me, since it's been a couple of months, the decision was the charters for each tag live where?
The end of the day, it seems it's going to live in the CNCF TOC repo. I was pushing for, I'll have to double check because it was here and then there and then everywhere. I would prefer, from my point of view, that they live in the TOC repo because their charter is the contract with the TOC. And I think Emily had the same view. I'll just have to follow up and make sure I'm not talking nonsense because there was back and forth.
Okay.
And then leadership, my plan is to have leadership owned, which make it a bit tricky. I want leadership to live only in one place. So at the moment, I have started updating it in the TOC repo, but working groups are decided by the tag. So the working group leadership should not necessarily be approved by the TOC. They're just informed and the liaison agree. So the one way is, and I'm kind of brainstorming about where that should live. So the one way is it lives in the repo, but only in one place and only in the README. And then we hyperlink that back to the TOC. So it does not live in the TOC repo. It does not live in the charter. So you have only one place to update. Because I was working with tag app development, and they just updated the leadership, and we found it in probably 5 different places. And then you also have to do the clone monitor thing. So it's just impossible for people to fix it in all the different places. So the initial call is for tags. There's no call for working groups to review their charters. And I thought we haven't discussed this, so I'll throw it in here. And if we're all here, we can discuss briefly the tag and the working group. And also, if we want to, because most people that's in the main meeting is also here. So what do we think about rewriting the tags charter as well?
I have to look at what we actually have as the tags charter, which probably means it does need updating since I don't remember the last time I looked at it.
The TOC version and the repo version is out of sync for us.
Yeah, well, sure. I don't think we've made any attempt to maintain the TOC version.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pretty consistent with other tags, is that we maintain the one in our own repo because it's easy for us to update. And that would be the trouble that the TOC is borrowing for themselves, in that I can I anticipate a lot of problems where somebody files one change to their charter and it hangs around unapproved for 9 months. And as a result, when they have another update to make, they just don't bother.
I think, yes, I think the idea there is when also the call from the TOC was when you update the charter, your liaison should be the one that's, so it's activating the liaisons more to in
Yeah.
the oversight role and call for action on their side.
Mhm. Yep. Okay. I mean, we actually have a pretty good, although we need to slightly update a couple of things. And we have a pretty good amount of stuff in our README. I think it was Dawn. Did you overhaul that? Okay, somebody overhauled the README relatively recently.
Yeah, I don't think it was me. I'm trying to remember who did that.
I think it was part of when we cleaned up the repo. I did quite a bit of cleaning up on the repo.
Okay.
I remember something like that.
Yeah. So, oh, and Jay did some too. The
Yes.
okay. Do, 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 do. This is the charter in our repo, by the way. I already see something that I would like to take out. Because one thing we have in there is webinars, meetings, and other events to engage with the end user and CNCF project community on upstream contributing trainings and engagement programs. That seems pretty beyond our resources and is not something that we've actually ever done, and I don't know how that got in there.
Looking at the charter in our repo.
Yes. I'm not even looking at the one in the TOC repo because I'm assuming it's way the hell out of date.
Or we might actually update it on over here or agree on the updates here, delete it here and push it there.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would actually add one other thing because we end up doing a lot of it, which is actually two things. I mean, one would be activities on fostering project development at KubeCon because we do that, as well as helping connect projects to CNCF, um, uh, to CNCF Foundation resources, because we also do a lot of that. And I don't anticipate stopping. So,
So maybe if I can propose a method which I find fairly useful is if we throw what we have here in a Google Doc and we share it around for comments and changes, and then once we decide on, because I find it hard to collaborate on a document in GitHub. And maybe we should do that while we're discussing it in the contributor growth working group. Do both these as a first run, and then clear up the rest of the third.
Okay.
Good.
Now here's a big question. We have this whole section on members being a member of the tag. Which is not something we've ever implemented, partly because we literally never vote on anything. The
Yeah, I don't think members makes any sense to me.
yeah, I mean, I think this was copied from the generic tag template because the technical tags or the project tags often do have to vote on things like whether or not they're recommending a project for sandbox acceptance. And they'll be doing more of that voting in the future. I guess the question is, whether or not we're going to be doing more voting in the future, because of the new sort of project advancement review process, as in doing a sort of community governance review is going to become more formal, which means that at some stage we need to approve that we're recommending or not recommending matriculation.
I think the problem we have is that the members list is like, it's basically a list of people who were at one point interested in the tag.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or in the group. I think if we had to vote on something, I think it would make sense to have the chairs, the technical
Mhm.
leads,
Yeah.
like the named roles that we have. I think those people are the ones
Yeah.
that would probably be best to vote on something.
Agree. No, I think the member thing we inherited right from the beginning, and there was
Yeah.
some slight changes on that. So agree, that would be a good deletion.
Okay, yeah. So we'll want to remove that and we'll want to put in how we actually vote on things if a vote is required. Or actually we have meetings and decisions. What did we say we would do? Yeah, that says membership. And so we'll need to replace that with some information, because really what it would be is, the people actually voting or coming to consensus, honestly, because it would be extremely rare for us to make a non-consensus decision. Would be some combination of the chairs and TLs with the appropriate working groups. Because like, if we're actually doing a project matriculation evaluation, it would be chairs, TLs, and the leads for this working group and the governance working group, right? Because those are all the people who were involved.
Correct. Which brings me to another thing that's being discussed in the TOC repos about leadership and rotation of leadership and the methodology for that, which is, I think, with a more active participation groups like security, app development, where there's a lot of people, easier. But in our case, it's going to be hard to rotate out people.
Yeah. And one thing I started thinking about after Nate talked to us about mentoring wanting to stay part of this tag, is the desire of the TOC to narrow the scope of tags is actually in conflict with the desire of them to have tags have a contributor pipeline. You follow me? That is, a more narrow mission for the tag means you basically have less people coming in.
I see what you mean.
Right, because like there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense for DHOH to graduate to their own entity. But like I had my eyes on, for example, Rob as potential leadership for the tag. And once he's leading a separate DHOH thing, he's not going to be leading this tag as well. And it's something I guess we should talk to the TOC about.
And in that way, you integrate the deaf and hard of hearing group people into more things in the community than just maintaining their own section of the community, which would also be a good cross collaboration. But it is hard to recruit people to a tag where there's not projects associated with.
I don't know any of the tags that are doing particularly well with recruitment right now. If you think about it, all of the tags are secondary open source, as in There's something you do after you've completed your work on actual projects.
Mm.
And so realistically, we're always going to be shorthanded. Particularly, this tag is suffering from the same thing that Kubernetes contributor experiences, which is the number of people employed full-time on community management has dropped by like 60% in the last 2 years. Which means that the remaining people who do it are working harder on things that are core job functions. And believe me, I think about it because like I'm the chief candidate to rotate off, right? I've been here since we founded the tag, and I ought to be rotating off and filling somebody else in. But right now, I don't know that we have a candidate. So
Switching topics slightly, so I think on the charter thing, I will make an output of this meeting to Google Docs that is living in our G Drive folder. One for this tag of this working group and one for the main tag, stick it in there, and then we do our collaborations there. Something else that's not in the agenda that I've been thinking about that you said we do a lot of work at KubeCon around getting contributors. So I've bumped in, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys before. I bumped into the, what do they call it? The peer mentoring working group session. Jay actually talked me into going there. It's really cool. I've been there last year and he stood me up. I got there and he didn't come. But it turned out to be a good experience. So I'm sure you might have been there before. So they have this layout. They had 4 tables and each table had a label on. One said career, the other one said code, and the other one said something else, which kind of the labels got ignored mostly. And then they have 15-minute sessions and the people around the table are supposed to mentor each other about opportunities and what's going on. And what's going on in the open source space and how do you get involved. And it turned out it was myself, and I noticed Dims was there and Tim Pepper was there. That was the only experienced people that I know. There might have been more that I don't know. And most of the people, that was on the Friday morning, and most of the people that came to the peer mentoring session was people brand new to open source that really want to get involved. And by the Friday, they still had no idea where to start. So one of the key resources that I've thrown out is the how to get started in open source document, which a lot of people took that, and a lot of people took Cloud Monitor. And then I realized there is probably enough need for that, because at every KubeCon, more than half the people is brand new. There might be enough need for that to have either a full-time booth of how do I get started in open source, or a Colo first day thing that says how do I start it, almost like the what's the thing that George led with the speed, with they were turning around every 7 minutes. They had another person doing a
right
thing.
yeah the mentorship speed dating, yeah.
Yes, which was super well attended. There was, but
yeah.
what I found a little disappointing is there were several tags that that actually went to that and presented themselves, and they got up and they spoke in abbreviations for 7 minutes and got off the stage. And I realized the people that's not in the know just have no idea what you were talking about. And I was thinking, because the type of questions is kind of my level of tech. So how do I make a PR? Why do I make a PR? How does this? So it's not that, and it would probably be irritating to the real tech people that actually write code to have people. And some of the people that was there is like developer engineer at some big company. And I think, how do you not know these things?
So, yeah, well, there's lots of ways.
Do not know things.
You would be shocked the number of big companies that are still using antiquated development tools like, oh, what is this CVS era version control system out of Oakland?
Gosh, you give
Perforce.
away your age.
Perforce. Perforce is still in business. They still have their own office building in Oakland. So that means
Imagination
there's still a bunch of
Technologies
people
where-
using them. Yeah.
Yeah, Imagination Technologies, where Paul used to work, uses
Yeah.
Perforce.
The I mean, they're also using a lot of EOL software. Not that I have any specific acquaintance with that, but the yeah, Diane.
Just years ago, and I remember you being up on stage on a co-located event that was like open source 101 for the contributors, and we don't do that anymore at KubeCon. That was that, and I don't know where all the materials went for those, and I do distinctly remember you doing some day-long event for absolute beginners.
Yeah, well, at KubeCon we used to do what was called the new contributor workshop.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Which was a 4 to 5 hour introduction to contributing to Kubernetes.
Mhm.
And we stopped doing it because it was an enormous amount of effort.
Yeah.
You know, it basically for like 4 or 5 people, that was all they were doing for KubeCon.
Yep.
And these are people who were Kubernetes leadership, and therefore we kind of needed them to be doing other things. And this is relevant to us planning on doing anything. The outcomes were getting steadily worse. As in, the first time we did a new contributor workshop, Kubernetes got, I don't know, I would say probably, I haven't looked at the graphs for a while, but Kubernetes got more than a dozen, maybe 20 regular contributors out of it.
Yeah.
Each time we did it, that number went down, even
Yeah.
though the number of people enrolled in the new contributor workshop was going up.
So retaining the participants is difficult. But there now, if we did something that wasn't specific to Kubernetes, that was a 4 or 5 hour workshop, and maybe got some funding and paid resources from CNCF staff to do it, so that it wasn't a burden on everybody else who has other day jobs, or ask them to host it with the same materials with their own staff, or Linux Foundation staff of some ilk. Because I heard Rianne, I think you said it to me, and it's either in Slack or somewhere else. Throwing the acronyms out there on stage for, doesn't really help. And it's also doesn't forward the mentoring stuff very well either, because no one can understand it. But the course, that 4 hour course was great. It was like one of the best things I'd ever seen done. And I understand that it's way too much work, and it took everybody's energy to get it done. And, but if it was properly resourced and funded, that would be, I think, one of the answers to this problem of how do we deal with all these absolute brand Nubians, and inoculate them with a good understanding of how to do a PR, how to log an issue, how to do a comment, how to create a GitHub profile. We have people who don't have GitHub profiles showing up at these events, which is mind-boggling at this day and age, but it is because we've been in it so long, we don't think about that.
I think this would actually be something to talk to, and we are getting off the topic of reviewing our charter, but this is very core to the topic of this particular working group. So I think there's something we should bring back to CNCF staffing and events, because one of the things they're talking about doing, starting with India, is having a maintainer summit to go alongside the Kubernetes contributor summit for all the non-Kubernetes projects. And if someone could come up with staffing, this would be something that could be part of that maintainer summit, and actually would be a very good thing to be part of that maintainer summit. Ali?
Going back one step, so the Contract Fest, isn't it similar to your contributor, what was it, contributor workshop or whatever?
It's a little different and actually I would say it ends up being a lot different. Because the contributor workshop and what Rian was asking for was for something that was for people who, hi, I just got a GitHub account a week before I got to KubeCon. What do I do now? Whereas having run some of the Contrib Fests, actually where we've had the most success is focusing instead on people who already contribute to open source projects and know how to program in Go, etc. Right? Is because like for etcd, we did one that was very beginner oriented and we got really no actual contributors out of it. And we did a second one that was a, hey, come here able to actually compile etcd on your laptop. And that one worked great. And so I think we'll see a lot of projects in the future focusing more on the advanced contributor who just doesn't happen to contribute to your project, which leaves a big gap for the new contributors. Rian?
Yes, I think you're right. There's two markets. The one market is the one that Diane spoke about, the people that have absolutely no idea. And most of the people that I spoke to at the peer mentoring working group was exactly those people. Yeah. So I spoke to this Robert Reeves at CNCF. He gets all the sponsorships, or his members. He deals with sponsorships and members, and he said it's an absolutely great idea. And then we and he named a couple of training organizations and said we'll make them pay for it because it's in their interest. They want to gain, and they get the chance to do a short keynote of training is cool, and we provide training. You get Linux Foundation training obviously on there because it's Linux Foundation and CNCF, and then you get some training companies to do a short pitch and sponsor the thing. And the approach that I'm thinking of is purely I also think 4 hours session, like a morning session with a break in the middle, where you basically talk through that document, how to get started in open source. You just talk to the point, explain what it is, explain why, and then after every paragraph, you have a Q&A. Okay, so any questions about this section? What don't you get? And it's just a discussion session going round and round. And if you have 50 people in the room, they're going to leave after 4 hours with, oh, that's how it works. And if that's all you achieve and I burn 4 hours of my time for that, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I think the other thing is we can create a dummy repo, a dummy organization, and walk and have people actually do a pull request against it.
Yeah,
I have a good story about that. So Destiny, that's working in Deaf and Hard of Hearing working group, she had a profile and she wanted, and I was in one of the meetings, I said, anybody that wants to contribute to these documents, raise your hand, ping me, I'll help you to figure it out if you don't know. She didn't know Markdown, she didn't. So I walked her through, okay, this is how we make the document. And then I said, now we make a pull request. And she said, I don't know why. And I explained, and we did actually a dummy pull request into one of my repos. And the light that went up on her face when she said, oh, that's how it worked. And she has been messing around in GitHub, trying things, but nobody showed her. And if you make the PR and it merged, the main branch has changed. Simple things like that. Just don't
know. A thing up here in Canada, when you're driving and you first get your license and you've got a permit, like a learner's permit, they give you a magnet that has a big N on it. And it's on the back of your car for like 6 months. So, hey, if you ever drive, you'll see somebody. And every once in a while, we used to sneak them and put them on our parents' or someone's parents' car, right? But what I could see is you could do this workshop and you could give everybody like a newbie badge so they could walk around KubeCon for the rest of the week saying, I'm a newbie. If I ask a newbie question, I've been to this newbie workshop. I know enough to be dangerous. And, bear with me. Like, that kind of branding that makes people feel comfortable asking those naive questions, not stupid. But we are missing, so many opportunities. Even at OS Summit last week, there were, I ran into a number of people. You get everybody from, Ingy.net who rewrote YAML as YAML script, like been in there, done there since the early days. And then you get people, they had, I think, 200 university students that they got from different, and I talked to a high school kid who actually knew Rust, which kind of blew my mind. But, you know, there's such a range of people. And, you know, when in the mentorship program, what we were surfacing were people who signed up for a mentorship, didn't even have a GitHub profile. You know, how does that happen? Do they get all the way to the place to apply for a project, get accepted, and then they don't have a GitHub profile? And they don't, I mean, if they don't have a GitHub profile, they probably don't know how to do a pull request. So, and with half of the people who come to KubeCon not ever having participated before, that's a huge audience. And Robert Reeves is a great, that's the training programs that the CNCF hosts have. They have resources that they could just put on this. I don't think that, I'm not trying to make it the work of the contributor strategy working group, but I think we can push for it, advocate for it.
If we have enough agreement here, we should have it. I can start stubbing out an outline of what I think it should look like. And I'm honestly thinking just not a lot of work that what you had to do before. Absolute low level dummy repo, and it's just talking and slides.
Yeah, and a lot of the content of the NCW was also fairly Kubernetes specific, right? Because like the thing that the segment that ended up being sort of permanently mined, for example, was a review of all of the sub-projects of Kubernetes, which is obviously not relevant to a general audience, right? Yeah. One of the other things that I think we should do while forming this is to throw it out to the maintainer circle and say, maybe even like we suggest this to Dave, doing it as a maintainer circle session as well as doing it async, is to throw out to the maintainer circle and say, hey, what do you wish that newbies knew before showing up at your project?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. And then maybe if this is being done as part of the maintainer summit for newbies, we can maybe get some maintainers of projects to rotationally guest star, if you follow me. Because I'll tell you from doing the NCW, having somebody who's the senior maintainer of a project stand up and say, you need to do this, gets through to the students a lot more.
It might be more of a burden, though, on the maintainers and a distraction from what they're trying to attempt to get done at the Maintainer Summit. So I still think it's just a training program the CNCF should offer.
Yeah.
You know, Rian, I'll give you a hand if you do the step thing. I'm doing something, how to become a Web3 developer for a co-located event. I mean, it's basically, I mean, it's not quite mint your first NFT or smart contract, but it's close. And you know, and you can't hurt anything, you know, it's like having an empty GitHub repo. So that's, those kinds of things are really helpful, because I tell you, minting my first NFT set off a whole lot of epiphanies and light bulbs for me about some of this, even though it wasn't a Bored Ape. But it really helps. And especially if you know you're not going to crash somebody's infrastructure by doing it. I think that's the intimidating thing, is when it's associated with an actual project and code base, it flips people out. Like, oh, I'm not gonna ask to merge this, or my code isn't good enough, or my grammar isn't good enough for that. So this makes it so, and it's really would be simple to do. And the outline and what you did previously for the Kubernetes contributor workshop is really good guidance. But maybe make it generic to a ghost, and give it a good name, the Brand Nubians, which is actually a rap band in Paris.
Of course it is.
It is the Brand Nubians. Yeah. So,
I like a new contributor badge thing, the newbie, I don't know, learner badge, like a big fat.
I like the
South
idea
Africa is a big fat L.
I like the idea of being able to go up to someone behind them and put it on like a "Don't kick me" sign too. It's like, this is the Brand Nubian.
Yeah.
Anyway, so something like that would be really useful. And we've got some time leading up to Salt Lake City, and the Robert Reeves connection is really good, because that'll get you funding.
And I mean, although Yeah, I was going to say, realistically, I don't know that they're planning on doing the maintainer summit in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
There would be some opportunity though, because the Kubernetes contributor summit in Salt Lake City is actually the day before the Colo day, which means that unlike Paris, there is some space and staffing available for that day before. But I think more realistically, we're probably looking at, say, London next year.
We could also, the other person, Rian, is to talk to Jen Madria, who is now the chief of staff at the Linux Foundation, and is looking for new and innovative things to do at upcoming Linux Foundation events. And she might have some ideas about how we could shape it into there. If you don't know her yet, you don't know. You have to be introduced to Jen, the powerhouse.
Haven't met, but I have to. I think you've got your hand up for a while.
Yeah, what was I gonna say about? Oh, okay. So about the workshop or this guided tour of creating your first PR and things like that. So that's very cool, but could we also do something around the culture, like how to find tasks, how to, I don't know, how to reach out to the community and stuff like that. So we are running another mentorship program in Turkey for locals only. And what we do there is that one. So not focusing on the code too much, but having a one-on-one meeting every week so that we chat about how things work in open source. And there are obviously other problems like language barriers and things like that, which we probably cannot solve in a KubeCon session or workshop. So we talk about these kind of stuff. So the culture is the blocking part, in my opinion, not the tech or whatever.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
A lot of the getting started in open source document actually talks about know the community, decide why you want to do this, figure out how they accept PRs, join their meetings, listen, learn. So yeah, you're right. Culture should be half of the story and take the other half.
Yeah, that's actually why I'm doing the Web 2, Web 3 session there. Is I want to get more Web 2 people who are already inoculated with the open source culture into the Web 3 universe. So that is a key piece of it, getting them to understand the value proposition.
Okay, so
we beat that one to a dead horse.
This sounds like a good long-term thing. Does somebody want to go ahead and create the issue and the card for this? So
yes,
that we can
I'll
actually
do that.
develop it.
And I'll do the Google Doc that we collaborate in, and then Josh, I'll appreciate if you can share the things that you produced previously, and we'll probably slim it down to the simplest version of this is how you do open source.
I mean, honestly, yeah, if you cut out all the things that are Kubernetes specific, that's already going to be 60% of the content that you're cutting. And I would say ideally we should target not a 4 to 5 hour thing, but more like a 1.5 to 2 hour thing. I think that's going to be more appealing and more able to be resourced.
Okay, let me start working on that. And if Robert said if I have a framework enough to discuss, I should reach out and he'll just find somebody to pay for it.
Okay.
That's willing to.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I do want to actually, let's finish off with reviewing the working group charter.
Good, thanks, Josh. If you will.
You put it in the link in the chat again. Sorry, I joined late. My last one rolled over.
Because the conclusion from this discussion is we do want to add KubeCon activities to the charter for the tag, right? And also the working group apparently. So So
So is there something about education that we can put in here? On open source culture, I don't know where you, what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Maybe you could,
it
you could
might,
share
yeah,
yours.
that might actually be something worthwhile to add.
Yeah.
Is
role of
something
contributor.
about education and culture and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Because one of the amazing thing is the contribution ladder, creating that and educating people on that, but also working the ladder, helping support the
Mhm.
work of the ladder, and not, you know, we all know. I mean, my point of view is that we put too much of a burden on the maintainers, and so if we can give them well-educated, open source and culture inoculated people, that's a huge thing for us
Mhm.
to do and contributor growth.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how you phrase that. You're much better at writing charters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's throw this one into a document too, and we can actually mark it up.
Cool.
Let me create that document quickly.
Yeah.
See if
Okay.
I can find the
I
right
just
access.
have to run to the door for a minute. I'll be right back. Someone's banging.
Yeah. And we should also maybe indicate that the community infrastructure initiative is awaiting contributors at this point.
Yes.
The
Good idea without contributors.
Yeah. So
We got kicked out of the CNCF G drive. Let me just try and get back in, then I'll make the documents. Oh joy. Two-factor authentication in a group is always fun.
Are we going to have the roadmap here, like in text?
oh no, but we should have. Do we have links to the cards here?
You should just have a link to the projects, right? GitHub project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our approach basically was roadmap is a neat repo and a project board, and not the description.
Okay.
All right, can't get in, so I can't make the documents now. I'll make them as soon as I get access. And I'll throw it in there and then we can discuss in the document.
Yeah.
You want to discuss this together now?
No,
Josh?
unless somebody is unless somebody has like major changes to propose other than just sort of bringing it up to date.
Yeah, I think that'll be easier to do offline. We're about out of time anyways.
Which would allow us to get coffee before the next meeting.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask Diane, somebody was knocking on the door and then you come back with coffee. Did somebody deliver coffee to you?
Nah, and you know what? It's cold, early morning coffee. You know that we have a gas fireplace being put in, and somebody was carrying. I can see out this window. I can see them coming down the walkway. So I had forewarning, so I could open the door.
Oh, I thought somebody walked in and brought you hot coffee.
Nah, I'm not that. I'm not that princess. I got to get my own, and it's cold too.
You get the fireplace, gonna be better. All right. If there's nothing else, I'm gonna let you all go make fresh coffee. Thanks, that was a good discussion.
All right, thanks, Rian.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day.
Nice to
Cheers.
see you all.
Bye.